Hello and welcome to Comedian versus Economist. My name's Adam and we're joined as always by my cyclone prepping little older brother and real life economist, Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Yeah, g'day, Adam. How are you going?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
Got enough sandbags down where you are?
Yeah. I don't need them. You need them. How's the? So we're recording Thursday, the 6th of March. Cyclone Alfred is bearing down. How's things looking where you are?
Oh, yeah. Man, it's hard to know. It's a bit sketchy. I think the thing is we're going to get the winds, which is a worry, but then we'll probably get heavy rain, which means flooding.
Yeah.
Which is probably a bigger worry. So, yeah, we'll see.
All right, we'll see. Yeah, I hope everyone's done well. By the time this comes out, the cyclone will have come and hopefully gone, but there could be all sorts of, consequences as a result. So we hope everyone out there is staying safe and dry and looking out for each other. It could be a tough time. And also, I should note that the schools are closed, your kids are home, you've decided to record in the lounge room.
Yeah, it's the highest part of the house.
And before we started, we've already been interrupted 9 times. So we're just going to roll with it because everything's up in the air a little bit at the moment. But Thomas, I did want to mention CVE's on YouTube now. It's going off. Shout out to Adrian, who was the first to subscribe.
Hey.
I know he was the first subscriber because he also currently holds the title of only subscriber. Still, 25 views now across 3 videos and about 5 hours of editing. Totally worth it, I'd say.
Yeah.
You will find it. There was some confusion. Equity Mates have got their own channel, obviously, and there's a playlist called CVE Podcast. That's not it. That's just the audio version of the show. So there is a channel at CVE Podcast is the handle where you'll find the videos for these shows. If you are interested in checking out our faces and what we look like while we're talking. But big show to get through. But before we do, got a listener email here. Josie sent us an email. Shout out to you, Josie. We're talking about tequila on the show last week, Thomas. Josie sent in some facts, some hard truths about tequila. All tequila comes from Mexico, which I wasn't aware of. In fact, tequila comes from the town of Tequila in the state of Jalisco, like champagne. So you can't call it tequila unless it comes from tequila.
Yeah,
like
right.
Champagne. Although you can call it tequila if it's 2:00 in the morning and you're in a bar and someone says, let's have tequila shots, then it's fine.
Some sparkling agave juice.
Well, agave is another name for it. Some even made in Australia. You still can't call it tequila. You have to call it agave. Mezcal is similar to tequila, but it doesn't come from the same place. So mezcal is typically the same thing as tequila, but made outside of Mexico. So some other life tips from Josie is never drink bad tequila, Thomas.
Oh, nice.
So just take that. And so there you go. Apparently, I also have it on very good authority that you can get a cracking margarita, Thomas, which is tequila-based cocktail. Cracking margarita at Rosafina's in Villanudgel. So if you're in the area, I have it on very good authority that their margaritas are excellent.
Yeah. That's Josie's restaurant, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, thanks, Josie. No, Rosafina's is popular. It's well known up here. Well, it's well known by the locals. So if you're visiting Byron Shire and you're looking for good Mexican, check out Rosafina's over in Billinudgel, not far away.
Are there some good Mexicans there, are there? As opposed to those bad Mexicans that Trump's trying to keep out. All right, we've got a big show to get through, and there's a cyclone incoming. So let's get started. As always, we're looking at charts. If you want to follow along, you'll find them on YouTube, of course, and Facebook and Instagram at CVE Podcast. Thomas, we've got GDP and inflation data, including a bit of private sector growth. I had some private sector growth once. I was a lot younger. We're looking at a housing super cycle, and no, that doesn't mean Pelotons for everyone. And it's the Hollywood Film Club presentation night and meat tray raffle, aka the Oscars. We've got some interesting Oscars data. But first, Thomas, Doge is up. The task force, that is. When recession?
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought because I know you love the sports betting data. So, got a couple of things here, which I think
should give a shout out. I posted a link on LinkedIn actually, which summarised the journey of Track My Brown. So have a look, because we had a massive victory. We've got live betting odds being removed now from AFL and NRL broadcasts. So I like to think that I played a hand in that. But go and check it out. There's an article on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, that's some good work out of you. I was impressed by your statistical efforts. Shame you don't bring any of that nous to the show, but it's great.
I've got to maintain my different personas, Thomas.
Right.
There I'm a stats guy. Here, not a stats guy.
Yeah.
Anti-stats even. No, what's going on with? What's going on with?
Well, the chance of a recession this year, according to betting odds, is now up to 36%.
Right.
Down from almost the start of the year, it was down to about 15%. So there's been a big lift. So, I mean, I wouldn't put too much weight on the sports betting data, other than to say it's probably a bit like the consumer sentiment data. Just sort of, it's a good way to read the vibe. And so there's been a bit of a turn. So start of the year, everyone's like, great, Trump's going to cut taxes, deregulate things, ramp things up again, economy's going to boom. And now everyone's a bit like, ooh, okay, maybe not. Maybe this is going to get a bit bumpy. And I think Trump himself is trying to move away from the stock market as being the measure of his success. Because I think now the S&P 500 is now lower than it was when Trump took office. And trying to move it more towards bond markets, and saying bond markets are a better read of markets' sort of faith in the economy.
Is this because he's reflecting on the tweet that he sent when Biden was in charge that said, if the Dow Jones drops 1,000 points in 2 days, the president should be impeached?
Impeached. Wow.
At which point, so just recently it dropped 1,000 points. I think it was Dow Jones, maybe it was S&P 500, maybe.
Wow.
He made that tweet went out, I think, 2022.
Wow.
And then he just oversaw 1,000-point drop and was all quiet on it. His response: look at bond markets, don't look at the stock market.
Yeah, funny. But the thing I think that is shifting sentiment is that people are now realizing that the cuts that Doge, oh man, I just still can't believe that body exists. Like, it's called Doge.
Yeah.
Anyway, that now is those cuts are going to have a bigger impact on the economy than expected.
Right.
Back to the sports betting odds. Typically,
you've really not paid a lot of attention to what I've been doing over at Track My Brown for the last 2 years, have you?
Yeah, no, that was the key takeaway. People love tips. Here's a tip.
Right.
Yeah, but no. Again, it's a bit like consumer confidence data, and there is information in it to the extent there's a lot of people to the extent these markets are deep. So there's going to be some information there. Typically, like, that's an economics view. If the number of people making the prediction is deep, there's a lot of them, then there's going to be some useful information in there. But anyway, how many people are going to get cut in 2025 has jumped from expecting about 100,000 job losses now up to 350,000.
Wow,
which is a pretty massive cut.
Is it fair to say that they're not the Doge system, call it a system? Not particularly selective. Like, it's not like a sort of razor sharp task force of like surgical precision removing people from, redundant roles. It's more of a sort of
chainsaw.
Right.
There's like, it should be a scalpel removing a cancer is sort of like the metaphor that they'd like to tell you, but it does look more like a chainsaw just hacking at everything.
To be fair, Musk he waved a chainsaw around at one point.
It's easy to see where people get that impression from. But Ambrose Evans Pritchard, who's a old greybeard, markets greybeard, he's saying, like, you look at Executive Order 14154, and it's saying it's terminating the Green New Deal, saying all agencies will immediately pause the disbursement of funds appropriated through the Inflation Reduction Act or the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Both of those acts were massive. And so, like, judges have intervened to some extent, but you're still looking at 300 billion worth of cuts there immediately. So it's pretty massive.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have people, like companies, responding to those incentives. So he's saying, like, Freya Battery has cancelled a $2.6 billion plant in Georgia. Core Power has dropped a $1.2 billion energy storage project in Arizona. And then there's a couple of under $200 million battery factories in Detroit. And so it's pretty massive. And I think, like, to the extent, like, the best news story is that that Trump and Musk successfully reprivatize the American economy and shift the balance away from public spending and back towards the private sector. Like, that's the best case scenario. But the worst case scenario is they just slash the public sector and the private sector shrinks in response and freaks out and goes, okay, we're going to wind back investment because we're crashing into recession. And then you get a two-cylinder recession where both the private sector and the public sector are winding back.
Right.
And that's why we're now talking about recessionary fears, because government spending is cutting back really hard and in a sort of a blind way, it sort of seems, and private sector is starting to freak out in response. US consumer confidence has fallen to an 8-month low in the past week.
Well, is that because they've all lost their jobs? I mean, like, because that's going to play into it too, right? If you get rid of a large chunk of the public sector, that's just a bunch of people, like actual people who are out of work. So then spending is going to dry up, and even the private businesses that want to do well or want to sell things are going to find it tough to find people to sell them to. Or is it not that bigger impact in? What'd you say?
350,000. I mean, in an adult population of 200 million, it's not massive, but it all has multipliers. Like, the person loses their job, they stop going to cafes, all these sort of things. So and
that person, the cafe shuts or whatever, and
there's all these multipliers, we call them. So I mean, but it's still, and I think the thing we just don't know. Like, how, like, there hasn't been a clear roadmap. Okay, we're going to reduce headcount by doing this and this and this. It just seems like, okay, this agency gone, poof. So it
doesn't seem like something. Doesn't seem like a Trump initiative to be incredibly short-sighted on this sort of stuff. So surely there's a plan beyond tomorrow for we're going to get rid of a large chunk of the public sector, and then I have no doubt that it's just like, we're just going to do this, and then we'll see. like step 2, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, Thomas. GDP and inflation data. Let's start with GDP. How much did we all grow?
0.6% in the December quarter, 1.3% over the year. Annual growth rate's pretty ordinary, but the quarterly number surprised to the upside, so it was a bit stronger than expected. And on the whole, a bit. Well
done, everyone. Just take a moment to pause and just give yourself a pat on the back.
Well played. Well played, Australia. On the whole, a reasonably good result. We saw a bit of growth in private demand. So private demand has been absent for, almost like a year and a half. And it's all been public sector driving it and net exports. But private demand was back in the December quarter. So that's a healthy sign. I mean, zooming out, we've got another chart here, which I think is interesting. Like, just looks at, like, since COVID, public demand launched, it filled the gap that was created in private demand. But then public demand never wound back. It just sort of took a new course and just kept going.
We need Doge.
We do need Doge.
We need
some kind of.
We need crash and burn, Thomas, to get rid of some of these jobs.
Needs an Aussie acronym, would be Dojo. Dojo onto it. So on the whole, pretty positive number, which sadly enough probably makes the RBA's choice to cut rates soon a little harder. Just because the economy seems to be going a little bit stronger than expected. That's it, though. The monthly inflation data, that's the other data we got out. That was the trim mean came in at 2.8, 2% in January. So that's bang in the band now. The monthly data is a bit choppy and things, but on the whole, that's in line with RBA forecasts too. So inflation coming down as we'd like it to.
Yeah.
So a bit of a mixed bag for the RBA this week.
Right. So what are they? Because I heard that they were still factoring in more rate cuts this year. We'll still get them, but maybe not as quickly or not as many.
Not as quickly or not as many, yeah. I mean, at the start of the year, everyone was expecting 4. That's sort of now ratcheted back to 3 or 2. We got 1. The next one's in April. Next meeting's in April. That was, that was expected. We get another one now. It's seems to be a bit of 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I always worry too on this chart here where we're talking about trimmed mean CPI inflation. There's a little section at the end there with the RBA forecasting. That just gives me a little pause for concern once we get into forecasting territory. Not because the forecasts are worrying, just because the RBA is forecasting.
Right. Yeah, you're not against forecasts per se. Right.
I don't mind forecasts. Just worry. I'm very selective about whose forecasts I listen to, though.
Right,
the RBA,
right. Yeah.
not up there in my top 5. Yeah. All right. Let's take a break here, grab a word from this week's sponsor, and be back with more CVE right after this. Welcome back here on Comedian versus Economist. You'll find us everywhere these days. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at CVE Podcast. Go and check it out. You'll find all the charts there as well. Thomas, a global housing super cycle is upon us. What's going on?
Yeah,
it's not
this
a Cyclone reference, right?
Yeah, this is from The Economist magazine saying the house price super cycle is just getting going, which is pretty alarming in the Australian context, given that prices haven't fallen.
I was going to say, haven't we been in a housing super cycle in Australia for the best part of the last 20 or 30 years?
30 years, yeah, like most of our adult life, really. Yeah, no, that's right. But it's going to keep going higher, they reckon.
Right.
Yeah, so just a few interesting things in that, which I thought, like first is they note like houses used to be a really ordinary, no one even thought about houses as an asset until quite recently. Like it was just the thing, it was kind of a consumable. This is somewhere you lived. And house prices never really went anywhere. They got a chart here between 1870 and 1950, prices didn't grow at all.
Well, they're pretty rubbish houses back then, though. Like it's a mud hut with some straw. It's pretty hard to get. It's really hard to pump it up at an open inspection when you're like, oh yeah, there's a hole over there that you can do your business in.
A renovator and or potter's dream. But so from 1950 onwards, I think that's about the time we started using bricks. From there onwards,
and look at the uptick. Just look at it. It took off from there.
Yeah, and then the mid 90s, another level up again, and it's just sort of just keeps getting higher and higher from there. And they're saying there's 3 things that are going to drive the coming global super cycle. So we've had the current super cycle so far, but they're saying it's going to take another leg higher. And they're pointing to 3 things. The first is demographic, saying that they calculate the rich world's. So we're talking globally here, so not just talking Australia. They're aggregating all of the OECD house prices together and looking at a global trend. So that's going to drive Australia too, but it's kind of making the point here that what we're experiencing in Australia isn't unique. It isn't just an Aussie isolated factor. It's a global phenomenon. But the first one is
I'm smelling opportunity, Thomas. Because there'll be places where this hasn't happened, right? Or that they're right at the start of this super cycle. I'm thinking when every now and then on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, you see those like, hey, did you know you can buy this house in this tiny Italian town for $4? Maybe this is where we need to start thinking.
Maybe if you want to get into that.
That's
sure.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Start. You'll be Googling houses in Italy.
Find out they're all just made of mud. Yeah. Anyway, demographics.
Yeah. So demographics saying that they calculate the rich world's foreign-born population is rising at an annual rate of 4%. So that's going to drive house prices. There's a recent study from someone in Barcelona University looking at Spain, saying that for a 1 percentage point rise in immigration boosts average house prices by 3.3%.
Yeah, right. That's why politicians like immigration so much.
I don't know if, possibly.
Because
Not
of what
so
it
much
does
as
to house prices, and when house prices go up, politicians are happy, aren't they?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, that's probably why they're not against it. Yeah,
right. Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, also boosts economic growth, which they like, and makes the numbers look good. So,
right.
yeah.
What are the other factors?
Well, the second one is anti-deurbanization. I may just made that word up, but saying the idea
sounds like anti-disestablishmentarianism, which for a long time, I don't know if it still is, was the longest word in the English language. Fun fact.
Yeah. I don't know your idea of fun. Very good. The idea that sort of this idea has been around a while that economies were going to decentralize and people are going to move out of the cities, and that was sort of going to take the pressure off urban house prices. But it's just never happened. And like Jane Hume, who's the workplace relations shadow minister, coming in from the coalition, she's saying that if the coalition gets elected, she wants every public servant back in the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So they're sort of like saying like remote work hasn't worked. Public sector's not going to be leading the way on that one. Want everyone back in the office.
Yeah, I heard that the other day, and I'm just like, does no one remember what the public service was like before we all went working from home? Like, it wasn't like a hive of productivity, stereotypically. There was a lot of like newspaper reading. There's a lot of smoko breaks. There's a lot of kind of, I'm not saying everyone in the public service is like this, but it was kind of, that was the sort of stigma attached to it. Working for the government was that, you clock on at 9 o'clock, you clock off exactly at 4:21. Like,
But do you think that got worse or better with remote working?
Yeah, I see your point. But then I guess, maybe, I don't know. Isn't that what we should be targeting? I feel like we should be targeting like reasons people don't work very productively, if that's the problem. Not where they're not working productively.
Maybe.
Was it better? Maybe it was slightly better, but that's not necessarily a good thing, right?
I don't know. But it follows a sort of a private sector trend as well. Like a lot of companies are giving up on remote work. I think it still works in some tech sectors, but the general trend has been away from remote working for a while now. You see it in the job ads. The number of job ads that are remote only has tanked.
Yeah, right.
So they put that together. They reckon, they're looking at percentage of employment in the capital cities. That just keeps going higher and higher. It was just above 20% in 2013. Now it's almost 22%. So,
right.
Yeah. So that trend's just not happening.
All right. And you said there was 3. What's the third one?
The third one is peak infrastructure. So it's sort of relating to this, but saying like the cities are now so crowded that it takes you ages to travel anywhere. So like saying like in the early days, like in the 1950s and the early urbanization days, you create a highway out to the outer suburbs and then people could commute easily. It took them 15 minutes to get into the CBD to get to work. And that changed the land value of those outer suburbs by putting in the highway and so on. But now all that low-hanging fruit's gone and the roads are getting more and more congested. They got a chart here on average speed per trip, miles per hour in England. It's down from just under 19 to just under 17. So like things are slowing down, which means that the scope to sort of to grow in your outer areas is reducing because people can't make it into work in a reasonable amount of time.
Or is it just that more people are cycling to work?
I don't think more people are cycling to work, no.
Because that would reduce their speed. Maybe even walking to work.
Right.
Where,
Yeah.
I'd love to know how they track this data. They're just like tracking people's phone location and how quickly they're moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
How
That's
on
an
earth are
interesting
they?
question. Yeah, we'll hit up the Department of Transport. They publish the data.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. I'm
I mean,
sure
maybe
you
it's
will.
speed limits that are working too. Like, anti-speeding messages finally hitting home. People are like,
finally
slow
landing.
down, would you? It's a school zone.
But the average
Mate,
speed is 19 miles an hour. Like, that's a lot of time just sitting going nowhere, right?
19 miles an hour is not that. What's that, like 50 k's an hour?
Is it?
Yeah, it's up there. I don't. It's not
No.
exactly 50. I don't know. I could do
Yeah.
some basic
Googling.
calculations, but I'm not going to.
No. Leave
Yeah,
that
but
to the
no,
people
that's
at home.
not. I mean, that's kind of that's gradual. But I wouldn't want to be doing it on a highway. If that, to your point, if you're
Yeah.
living in a sort of regional area and you're commuting along the highway to work and you're
Yeah.
cruising in at 19 miles an hour the whole time, that's a pretty. You want to have
Yeah.
some good podcasts?
Oh, yeah.
I can recommend one.
But that congestion means that it puts a premium on inner city areas that are close to employment. So that keeps pushing those prices higher in those areas.
Yeah.
So saying like all those together, more people in the cities, and the cities getting more congested is going to keep pushing prices higher. And and all of that's true in Australia. So
All right. I'll have to see what the roads are like around my little Italian village that I'm buying into. I'll add it to my list of things to check as infrastructure support.
what's the top speed on a moped anyway?
True, exactly. All right, Thomas, finally on the show, we're looking at the Oscars, the night of nights in the movie world. Why are we looking at the Oscars?
Oh, just because I had an interesting chart on it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, but what it does is it looks at winners by release date, by month, and so we've just had the Oscars, but saying that it kind of looks like about almost half of them winners are in October, November, December,
Yeah.
and most in December. So 17 winners come from December, I think, over the past since 1975. So this is for Best Picture.
Yeah.
So there's a pretty epic recency bias in the awards, it seems. It really is. Like when they say, what was the best picture you saw last year? People go, ooh, and then kind of remember the last 2 or 3 movies they saw.
Is it voted? I don't know anything about the Oscars. Is it voted on by the public, or is it? It's
it's
an academy, isn't it?
Academy, yeah.
So even even the Academy, remember whose job it is, whose sole purpose in life is to watch films. They're like, I can't. What was February? What did I do in February? No, I think it was away. So even they're more biased towards late releases.
Apparently, it's a lot of like retired actors and industry people who become judges. And so there was a period in the 90s where the Danish film industry was gaming the Oscars by just releasing these really quaint, middle of the road, old people-y kind of movies.
Oh, right.
And they picked up Best Foreign Title several years in a row. The Danish film industry was just crushing it. They just clocked that all the judges were old people and just started pitching them old people movies.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'd struggle to name a movie I saw more than a month ago.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
It's not unreasonable, but you'd kind of think it should, like for something as big as the Oscars, shouldn't, you think it shouldn't matter, but...
Is it still big, or is it just a bunch of navel gazing? Like, I don't know. Is it...
Yeah.
I don't tune into it at all.
No, we're still talking about it.
We are, yeah. That's true.
We cover all the big issues.
Yeah. Like, I don't... Maybe I think the awards now, and this is social media and the world we live in, I think, the awards tend to take a back seat now to the side stories and beefs and spats and
I think that was probably always the case, though, wasn't it? It's like it's a festival of celebrities.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bound to attract heaps of attention. I don't think anyone really cares about the films so much.
All the
I mean,
attention, all the celebrities. Well, that's a problem. All right, cool.
It's got one
had
more
other
fun
data.
chart here. One more fun chart from Stephen Follows. He's a film data guy. But he's looking at average number of words in Oscar speeches.
Oh yeah.
So back in the 1950s, there was 50 words for a speech. So very short. People just got up and said, "Thank you very much. It's a great privilege. See you for drinks." But then, but from there it started to lift up to 100 words in the 1970s, and then the 2010s it got up to just under 300 words. And then
they got a time limit now, haven't they?
Yeah. That's when they brought in the time limit. So in the 2020s, the last 5 years, it's dropped back off.
Yeah.
There's now a 45-second time limit.
Yeah.
And they start playing music at 45 seconds. So you get bounced off.
Yeah, right. I did notice actually that they've revamped the walk-off music. It's now the Benny Hill theme, just to get people off quicker. Right, well, there you go. Hope you enjoyed the Oscars if you tuned in, and all the celebrity drama that went with it. You'll probably have forgotten about it within 2 weeks. Very good. All right, that does it for CVE for another week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And whatever's happened with the cyclone by the time you hear this, I hope everyone out there is doing well, staying safe, looking out for each other. Can be a really tough time for everyone. So fingers crossed. But thank you for joining us. We will tune in. Well, I won't tune in, but hopefully you'll tune in again next time on Comedian versus Economist. Until then, it's bye for now.